Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. In a recent video, I did a search on church news and checked their archives, and I realized, you know what? I should search their archives for other things. And so I was doing a search for New Jerusalem, and I was just kind of going through this and looking through the results. And I came across a really interesting quote about apostates and why they can't leave the church alone, why some of them become so hostile when they leave the church and they keep attacking the church. And I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it was good enough to put on my spreadsheets. So before we look at that, here's the update on the Flood the Earth Challenge. We're at 10,084 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. We're trying to get to 50,000 now. And then we have 1,186 people that have joined the challenge. We're trying to get to 5,000 with that. So if you haven't already, please consider sharing the Book of Mormon, either a hard copy or a digital copy. You can use the Gospel Library app, go to Scriptures, and you'll see a button that says share to share the Book of Mormon app. And once you do that, just let me know. I'll keep track of it for you over here to the left. And the goal is to try to share at least 10. And then if you can go beyond that, then please do. So keep up the good work, everybody. Everyone's doing a really good job. Okay, so I stumbled across this article. It's called History of Church is Compiled, Studied to Strengthen Faith, Teachings for Good of Rising Generations. And this is from January 4th, 1997 by Calvin R. Stevens. And just so you know, I don't know exactly how far back this goes, but when searching for New Jerusalem, at least, it takes you all the way back to January 2nd, 1988. So I don't know like the earliest article that they have on here, but this goes all the way back to the 80s. So in your personal study, you may want to search church news because I think there's a lot of gems to be found. Just so many. I've mostly only focused on recent articles, but going back in time, there's probably so much stuff to find. So I'm going to try and do that. Okay, anyway, so the first part of the article talks about persecution in Missouri and the saints being driven out. And then it gets to this part. We learn of the nefarious ways of Satan and his attempts to destroy the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The war in heaven never ended. We simply switched battlefields. In pre-earth life, Satan sought us by gift and was rejected with his plan by our Father in heaven. Now, here upon the earth, he seeks us by the commission of sin. During the Missouri persecutions, there were many who apostatized from the church and even became enemies. Okay, and that's going to be the focus of this video. Why do so many of them become enemies? And my brother is one of them. We grew up. We were taught the same things. We were 7 years apart in age. And, he just ended up going this completely different way after receiving the Melchizedek priesthood. And it's been really bad. And he's very, very hostile toward the church. There's a lot of times that, he'll attack me on social media, unprovoked, just unprovoked. And so for me, this is kind of personal, and I'm really glad that I came across this. All right, continuing. The prophet Joseph Smith spoke of their sad state and warned against apostasy. And then it has a quote from the Juvenile instructor, 1892. So we're going to go directly to the source for that. This is in the church history catalog. Here you can see it right here. Holiness to the Lord, the Juvenile instructor. August 15th, 1892. Okay. And this is part of an article called Recollections of the Prophet Joseph Smith. And if we scroll down, it has this section that says Elder Daniel Tyler. I looked up who that was, and he was never a general authority, but he was an early church member. And notably, he served in Joseph Smith's presidential campaign, joined the Mormon Battalion, Company C, and then he was a mission president over the Swiss mission I guess in 1854. And then he immigrated to Utah in the Edward Martin Company. Okay, so this is who he is. Let's go back to this. And we'll read right here. Okay. Let us, my young brothers and sisters, shun the evils of apostasy, bearing false witness and betraying any of the Lord's anointed into the hands of the wicked, lest our future be like theirs. When the prophet had ended telling how he had been treated, Brother Behunin, I think that's how it's pronounced, remarked, "If I should leave this church, I would not do as those men have done. I would go to some remote place where Mormonism had never been heard or settled down, and no one would ever learn that I knew anything about it." Okay, so he's just like, I would just leave it alone. I would just go live my life, go somewhere, and just not talk about it again. And then this is what Joseph Smith said. The great seer immediately replied, "Brother Behunin, you don't know what you would do. No doubt these men once thought as you do. Now here's the thing. Before you joined this church, you stood on neutral ground. When the gospel was preached, good and evil were set before you. You could choose either or neither. There were two opposite masters inviting you to serve them. When you joined this church, you enlisted to serve God. When you did that, you left the neutral ground, and you never can get back to it." So this is kind of key. Okay? Because sometimes I don't think we realize the weight of our decisions. Like you may think, oh, this person joined the church or they didn't join the church and, just life goes on like normal. No, that was like a pivotal moment in eternity for that person. And it wasn't just like any regular choice, like what brand of soup am I going to buy at the grocery store? So let me read that again. When you did that, you left the neutral ground, and you never can get back onto it. Should you forsake the master, you enlisted to serve it will be by the instigation of the evil one, and you will follow his dictation and be his servant. So this is kind of a big deal. You come across the gospel, you either become a disciple and a servant to Christ and his church, or you go the other way. And it says that you follow, this is talking about Satan, you follow his dictation, as in he tells you what to do. And of course, you still have your agency, but I'm sure that you're much more under his power, his influence, if you don't choose Christ. But notice how he's talking about before this point, before you come across the gospel, you're on neutral ground. Now, we know that Satan has had power in the world, and I'm sure he has like limited power over people who have not yet come across the gospel. We know that he does influence people that probably have never heard of the church. But I think what he's saying is once you actually have your moment in time, in eternity, to accept the truth, then he like really has power over you. I think that's what he's saying here. When you did that, you left the neutral ground, and you never can go back onto it. Should you forsake the master, you enlisted to serve it will be by the instigation of the evil one, and you will follow his dictation and be his servant. He emphasized the fact that a man or woman who had not taken sides, either with Christ or Belial, could maintain a neutral position, but when they enlisted under either the one or the other, they left the neutral ground forever. And so it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I've always thought about it like this too, especially if you get baptized, you receive the Holy Ghost, you are now like in contact with something different in your life because the Holy Ghost testifies of the truth. so you can feel the presence of the Holy Ghost, and when it's with you, when you're doing what's right, and you're a clean and worthy temple for the Spirit to dwell in. And then you definitely feel it when it leaves, right? And so if you leave the church, you feel the Holy Ghost leave. And I'm sure from time to time, it probably still, prompts you, although it doesn't remain with you because you're living in a wicked way. It probably from time to time still testifies to you that what you're doing is wrong. And there's nothing that you can do about that. So we all come into this life and we have the light of Christ, which could also be called a conscience. We all have a basic understanding of right and wrong. But when you get the Holy Ghost, that takes it to another level. And so these people make their decision for whatever reason. And not only do they still have the light of Christ, a conscience, but they also have the Holy Ghost testifying to them, I think, from time to time, that they really are making bad choices. And it makes me think of like police videos that I watch. I mentioned in a recent video that I like to watch police videos from time to time. And it's amazing to me how like rebellious or how much people will like resist arrest when they're clearly in the wrong. And they act as though the policeman has no authority, and they'll do all sorts of things. It's crazy, a lot of people are really daring. They think that they can intimidate the police or whatever. Well, I imagine the same thing happens with the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost shows up and testifies what they're doing is wrong, and then they think that they can fight back. And so there's probably just like this inner war going on within them. And it probably makes them all the more bitter against the church because they have this like inner war. They're being testified to of the truth by the Holy Ghost, and they don't want that to be the truth. They want to live some other lifestyle. And so they probably get really resentful toward the church. And then of course there's going to be other factors outside of that. I'm just focusing on this. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about maybe some of these other factors, or if you have any other insights. But anyway, let's go back to this article and finish this off. So the article includes part of what we just read, but we read a more complete excerpt of that. And then it continues. An inspired Joseph Smith further explained, "Cursed are all those that shall lift up the heel against mine anointed, saith the Lord, and cry, they have sinned when they have not sinned before me, saith the Lord, but have done that which was meet in mine eyes, and which I commanded them. But those who cry transgression do it because," this is here it is. So whenever you come across like channels that are hostile toward the church or other content or material, think about this. Those who cry transgression do it because they are the servants of sin and are the children of disobedience themselves. That's from Doctrine and Covenants 121, verses 16 and 17. So don't get caught up in this game when people are attacking the church. It's like, oh, they don't understand, or, there's something going on. That could be, but I think it's more likely this. They do it because they are the servants of sin and are the children of disobedience themselves. It's just like some of the people that get arrested, like there's no reasoning with some of them. I'm sure maybe like the majority, maybe you can, but the ones that make it on YouTube, it's usually people that cannot be reasoned with. They're so far into a delusional world that they've concocted for themselves that they really think that they're above the law, or that they can escape the law, that the law doesn't apply to them, or whatever. All right, and then continuing, why is it then that the apostates will not leave the church alone? Because they are the servants of sin and have another master whose bidding they now do. And I'm assuming, you guys, that maybe after this life, once we reach a certain point of progression, we'll be privy to all the ways that the adversary has influenced these people, just how real the attacks and the control actually has been this entire time over people like this, and then attacks against us who are striving to be disciples of Jesus Christ. I think we'd probably be stunned if our eyes were open and we could see the very real actions taken by the adversary. So, I think whenever I see like an anti-channel, I'm sure that it's because of this. They have another master whose bidding they now do. So I went ahead and I added this to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z under the topic Apostates. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box below. If you're watching on a smart TV, you can't see the description box. You'll need to use your laptop or desktop or phone, but they're best viewed on a desktop or laptop. Okay, so I've added this. This is now my earliest, my oldest quote under this topic, apostates. The quotes to the right are older than the ones to the left. I thought I would go ahead and just read the rest of what I have on here. I don't have a whole lot for apostates, but okay, so this is from Joseph Fielding Smith. At the time, he was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This is Doctrines of Salvation, Volume 3. Severity of judgment upon apostates. The Lord will judge each individual case and will assign transgressor to that degree to which each is entitled according to his works. If a man only merits a place in the celestial, that will be his reward. And if it should be the terrestrial, then he shall be admitted to that kingdom. In order to enter the celestial, a man must be true and faithful to the end, observing all things the Lord has commanded. Otherwise, he shall be assigned to some other kingdom or to outer darkness if his sins so merit. Let it be remembered, however, that the punishment of the apostate, no matter who he is or what degree of knowledge he may have attained, shall be most severe. Quote, "Hearken and hear, O ye my people, saith the Lord and your God, ye whom I delight to bless with the greatest of all blessings, ye that hear me, and ye that hear me not, will I curse, that have professed my name, and the heaviest of all cursings." Sorry, with the heaviest of all cursings. I should highlight that. It's been a while since I added this to my spreadsheet. Okay, the heaviest of all cursings. It would be well to read the connection with this subject, the following, and then it has some scriptures that you can look up. If you want to see those, just pause right now and then look these up. I'm not going to do that, though, at this time. Okay, there's another one from Joseph Fielding Smith. It's also in Doctrines of Salvation, and it's also in Volume 3. Genealogies of apostates not to be kept. In November 1832, the Lord said, "It is the duty of the Lord's clerk, whom he has appointed, to keep a history and a general church record of all things that transpire in Zion, and of all those who consecrate properties and receive inheritances legally from the bishop, and also their manner of life, their faith, and works, and also the apostates who apostatize after receiving their inheritances. It is contrary to the will and commandment of God that those who receive not their inheritance by consecration agreeable to his law, which he has given, that he may tithe his people, to prepare them against the day of vengeance and burning, should have their names enrolled with the people of God. Neither is there a genealogy to be kept, or to be had where it may be found on any of the records or history of the church. Their names shall not be found, neither the names of the fathers, nor the names of the children, written in the book of the law of God, saith the Lord of hosts." I think that just means that they're not on like the records of the church as like a member of the church. Like if you get excommunicated, I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe some of you know better because you've served in the bishopric or you just have experience with it or whatever. I think that's mostly what he's referring to. Not that their names can't be found on FamilySearch.org, because like your name's not going to be removed from FamilySearch.org because of wickedness. But obviously, it's different with the records of the church, and ultimately after this life, when the official records are presented, and you have those that are written in their names are written in the book of life, and those that aren't. So I think that's what it's referring to mostly. Those who have received the truth and turned away from it and have rejected it and denied it shall be sorry. But I mentioned this in passing because people are coming constantly to have work done in the temples for people of this kind, in spite of all the Lord has said. This is worthy of your consideration. Yeah, that's another thing. You're like, going to the temple and doing the work for the dead is not a guarantee that that person's going to achieve exaltation, because it still depends on that person's worthiness and their choices in life, and in also their choices in the spirit world. So it's not a guarantee that that person's going to go to the celestial kingdom. You still have to be worthy of it. Okay, and lastly, this is President Russell M. Nelson, the April 2021 General Conference. Christ is risen. Faith in him will move mountains. Okay. If you have doubts about God the Father and his beloved Son, or the validity of the restoration, or the veracity of Joseph Smith's divine calling as a prophet, choose to believe and stay faithful. Take your questions to the Lord, so pray, and to other faithful sources. Study with the desire to believe rather than with the hope that you can find a flaw in the fabric of a prophet's life or a discrepancy in the scriptures. And this right here is probably where we should do some inner work. Why is it that we're hoping that we can find a flaw in the fabric of a prophet's life or a discrepancy in the scriptures? And I'm willing to bet it's because you have some kind of motive for the church not being true, or Jesus Christ not actually being the Messiah, or whatever it is that you're hoping. There's probably something that's driving that. And I'd be willing to guess that a lot of the time it's because you have some kind of sin that you want to indulge in. It may not always be like that, but I think that that could be a motivator if you could justify to yourself, like, oh, well, actually the church isn't true, so now I can go and drink with my friends and go to the coffee shop, or I can, get tattoos. I can treat people however I want without feeling any guilt, just whatever, all the different things. Okay, then he continues, stop increasing your doubts by rehearsing them with other doubters. Allow the Lord to lead you on your journey of spiritual discovery. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Don't spend time with people that are doubting, that are doing this very thing. They're trying to tear apart the church, or cast doubt on the leadership of the church or church history. Don't rehearse those thoughts with those people. They're doubters. They're looking for flaws, and you have to wonder why they're doing it. Go to faithful sources and ask the Lord directly through prayer, and he will bring you whatever questions you're asking in his own due time. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.